Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Mike Beer taking a look at the DRF race of the day for Saturday, December the 21st. It's race number 10 at Gulfstream Park, potentially a prep for the Pegasus World Cup turf. Let's throw up the field for the Grade 2 Fort Lauderdale. Going a mile and an eighth on the grass, carded as race number 10. Please access free Formulator Pass performances for this race on the Race of the Day event page at DRF.com. Take a peek, handicap along with us. Some rock-solid middle-distance turf horses in this race, Mike. The two Grand Sonata, the four Major Dude, both come in here for Todd Pletcher. Grand Sonata is cutting back in distance, but I'm not going to pigeonhole him as a true marathoner, although he won that big race at Kentucky Downs 2 starts back.
Yeah, he's the kind of horse who can kind of do anything. So, yeah, I don't think the dropping back to 9 furlongs is any issue for him. Major Dude, you know, he's maybe still got something to prove, but he's a good horse. He's a handy horse. There's a good trip coming for him in here. When I got done handicapping this race, then I thought Pletcher had the two horses to beat.
I'll be curious to see how the pace develops in this race. Saratoga Flash, the number 3, is a horse with tactical speed, and he might end up on the lead in here by default. He did show speed 2 starts back up in New York. He kind of made an early move last time out when winning at Gulfstream. It just seems like he's going to get to the front. And the good news about Major Dude, and we'll show a video about this horse a little bit later on, is he's very tactical and can be close to the pace.
Yeah, Major Dude's going to get a good trip regardless of how the early fractions play out. And it does kind of feel like Saratoga Flash is the one who it seems most likely to wind up on the lead in here.
If the pace is hot, keep an eye on the 8, Fort Washington for Shug McGahee. This horse has the fastest time form US late pace rating. We'll start things off with one of the 2 Safi Joseph trained entrants. That's the 1 Cash Equity. Coming off a 4th place finish as the favorite in the River City at Churchill Downs. This is a solid horse. His big race, though, came at Kentucky Downs 3 starts back. He earned a triple-digit buyer speed figure, and sometimes horses just do their best running or their worst running over that surface. He's consistent. He's going to be a good price in this race. And I think he's tactical, more tactical than he seems on paper. I don't think he has to come from 100 out of it if the pace is slow.
Yeah, you know, if you go back through his PPs, you can't find races where he was close. That has not been the MO at all this year. They've decided he's a one-run closer, Dan, and it has cost them more than once. This horse is actually pretty good, but they've run him as a one-run closer this year. And you can see, you know, it's so hard to win races like that, especially at the graded stakes level. He's 0 for 9 this year, but he's run well in every single one of those races.
Grand Sonata is the number 2 for trainer Todd Pletcher, beaten less than a length when 4th in this race last year. Todd really concentrated on longer distance races with Grand Sonata in 2024, and he made hay with that big performance at Kentucky Downs. I would just draw a line through the Breeders' Cup turf last time. He had no chance against those kind of horses. But as Mike mentioned, he's very versatile. He's won at this distance in the past. Interesting that Todd's putting blinkers on after all this time. Maybe it's to sharpen him up, considering that he's turning back so drastically in distance.
Yeah, that could be it. It's a little surprising. You know, they have gone 11 furlongs and longer in each of his last 4 starts. So maybe Todd's just trying to make sure he doesn't get outrun here. I don't know. I don't love them putting blinkers on for start 25, but I like everything else about this horse. I mean, he's just been a good horse for a really long time, Dan. And to me, distance just doesn't matter to him. He's good from a mile to a mile and a half, as long as he's in the right spot. My thing with Grand Sonata has always been anytime he's a price, I am on board, and anytime that he's really going to take money, then I'll look elsewhere, because it's not like he's some kind of superstar, but he's good. And the other thing about him too, Dan, is you can do anything with him as far as trip goes, especially you take apart his PPs and look at all of his races where he sort of draws an inside post. Man, he has enough speed to get right into position, saving ground, and he gets good trips in those races.
New York-bred Saratoga Flash comes into this race in good form. Let's watch his most recent victory at Gulfstream against allowance competition in the middle of October. And again, they realized the pace was slow. They went on with this horse on the backstretch. He takes over the lead, and he just keeps right on going. A very respectable 93 buyer speed figure. And this is a horse that has outrun his odds in stakes races at Gulfstream in the past. He was second in the Appleton last year at 17-1, almost pulled off a big upset. Are you worried about the 9 furlongs?
Yeah, a little bit I am. I mean, he had a really soft trip in that race that we just watched there, going 8.5, and he sort of started drifting out there at the end. I mean, he ran well in there. But he's got to run better than that against this field. You did point out, though, Dan, listen, he's outrun his odds in some stakes races. There's probably a good trip coming for him in here. I don't love him in this race, but he should be a fair price, and he's not impossible.
Major Dude comes off a nice allowance win at Keeneland over the fall. Let's watch that performance. Just a nice trip and ride from this tactical colt. He's sitting very comfortably in behind the leader and practiced hasn't even pushed the button yet. Inside the 3/16 pole, all he's looking for is a seam. He gets it, and Major Dude grinds it out in the fashion of a horse that shows an extra 16th of a mile will be no problem.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about 9 furlongs with this horse. And listen, we're watching an allowance win here at Keeneland. This is a stakes quality field here, and perfect trip or not, he beat those horses easily. This horse is good, man. He's going to get another good trip in this race. He is a stakes horse. I don't know. I think he's the horse to beat in this race. His overall form's rock solid.
Win for the money, number 5, hinted at a lot of talent at Gulfstream Park during the spring, running a big triple-digit buyer speed figure against a weaker black-type stakes group. But he was able to pull off a little bit of an upset in the Woodbine Mile 2 starts, Mac. Maybe not the strongest Woodbine Mile field in the world, but the runner-up in that race was coming into it in very, very good form. And Win for the Money, just like Grand Sonata, was just overmatched last time out in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I still think he's unexposed, despite the fact that he's a Grade 1 winner.
I think you're probably right. I mean, he did run well in the Woodbine Mile 2 back too. I mean, listen, you can pick apart that field if you want to and just say it wasn't that great, but it certainly would match up well with what he's facing in this race on Saturday. He got a great trip in that race, but he also really ran. And as you've already pointed out, he's already run really well on this turf course in the past as well. And he's a tactical horse too, Dan. He can get any kind of a trip in here. I don't know why I can't buy into this horse right now, because the more I look at him on paper, the more I feel like he's a major player in this race.
About a 3-month layoff for the number 6 Lorenz, a reformed claimer who has just been managed brilliantly by Safi Joseph. Put him in a handicap at Gulfstream 2 starts back. He got it done, and then they found a stakes race at Remington Park of all places, and Lorenz was able to get it done in the Remington Green. He's on the outside, and he's going to churn on in the stretch to get the job done. He's going to be facing a tougher group and will likely have to run faster than the 89 buyer speed figure, but it's good to see this Group 3 Brazilian winner back in form.
Yeah, probably a good sign, too, that Safi's going to run him in this race after a little bit of a break, because he was on short rest winning here in the Remington Green. He had to lose his Lasix for that, and he had no problem racing without Lasix there. He's just got to run a better race than that against this field, but we'll see if he's able to do it.
Wonder if the 7 Siege of Boston's going to try to show speed as he did last time out in the Knickerbocker. It seemed like they went a pretty good pace in that race. He took them into the stretch before tiring. Now, he doesn't need the lead to win, but I think getting close to the pace is going to be really advantageous for anybody in this spot. He just doesn't win very often.
Yeah, that's the thing. I wonder what does he need to win? I totally understand why they tried to ride him the way they did last time, because sitting off of it and trying to close in the stretch, that wasn't working for him. Not that he was running poorly, Dan. He runs well every single time, and he's a contender right back in this spot. But, man, he's starting to pile up the losses.
Fort Washington earned a graded stakes victory in dead heat fashion at Monmouth Park during the spring. He's coming into this race off a solid enough performance. Third in the Artie Schiller, going a mile over the inner in New York. He's just last turning into the stretch. He has too much work to do. A horse like Running Bee, who's odds on anyway, just got the jump on him into the stretch. It was nice to see Fort Washington, though, rally. That's what he does. The question is, does he get enough pace to work with here?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he just can't threaten these horses, but he is trying to gain ground into the fastest fraction of the race by about a full second in there. I mean, he really didn't have any chance in that race, and he ran fine. He's another horse, listen, wins have been very, very hard for him to come by, but he's a nice horse. If there's pace in front of him, he will come running.
And the number 9, Emmanuel, completes this field, and he really is the key to this race, because the good Emmanuel, you could argue, should be the favorite in here. He's a multiple graded stakes winner in the past. The question is this version of Emmanuel, can he still run anymore? They bought him for $500,000 earlier this year at public auction. Michael Maker's run him 3 times, and he just hasn't really shown the same oomph that we saw when he was with the Pletcher barn. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was never a fan when Pletcher had him either, and I can't listen. I'm not going to necessarily defend what he's done for Maker, but I will say this: I thought Kentucky Downs, we don't care about those races, right, Dan? But I still thought he ran fine in that race, doing a little bit of chasing, got a little tired at the end. I don't see how you hold the Turf Classic against him, 1.5 miles against those horses. I don't care. I watched his last race back again, the River City. This is its second time blinkers in there. He just did not want to settle in that race. Just very keen, pulling Saez for about the first 6 furlongs of that race. He wouldn't settle, and then he just came up completely empty. I thought out of that, Dan, the blinkers would come right off. They don't. And now I'm starting to think they're going to go here from the outside post. I think Castellano gets aggressive here, gets this horse right up close to the pace, and I already know that his good race is good enough to beat this field.
Before we take a look at our top selections, please click the subscribe button on the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel for the latest DRF videos. Top pick time, Saturday race of the day. It's the Fort Lauderdale. Mike's going with Emmanuel, certainly has the back class to win. You took the words right out of my mouth. We know at this distance against this field with this race flow, he can get close to the pace, if not outright control the fractions.
Yeah, that's the more I looked at the race, the more that's how I felt about it, and that's why I picked him again. I'm not really a huge Emmanuel fan. I kind of feel like now that I've picked him in this race, I got to go take a shower after we're done videoing here. But listen, I also feel like how do you think they're going to bet this race? Dave? This horse going to be a fair price in here?
I'm curious to see how they bet this race.
too.
I have a feeling you might get 9 to 2, 5 to 1, which I think is very, very fair. I just have a feeling the Grand Sonata is going to take some money after racing in the Breeders' Cup. The other Pletcher horse off that very impressive allowance win figures to take money. You would think Win for the Money is going to take some money as well. I need at least 3 to 1 on Grand Sonata. I'm not sure I'm going to take it. I'm curious to see what cash equity, though, does at a better price. I think with a good trip, this horse is a little bit better than he looks on paper. You have him fourth, I have him second. 9-4-2-1 for Mike, 2-1-5-8 for me in the Fort Lauderdale, the Saturday DRF race of the day. Good luck.